Hello, everybody. I'm Dr. Joe Gilgore, president at Mineral Area College, and once again, coming to you with another edition of Community College Presidents and Chancellors talking about community college, I guess. This is a crazy time in the world, of course, and often community college presidents and chancellors get together and talk and share ideas and best practices and whatnot. And this is a time when we're kind of a support group for each other as well. So it's kind of good to check in on each other, see how things are going, hear about different responses to issues going on, and just check in. And so today I'm happy to bring my next guest, which is a friend and colleague of mine that I actually get to work with on occasion, is Dr. Kim Beatty from Metropolitan Community College. And Dr. Beatty, it's so good to have you here today. And now Metropolitan Community College is in Kansas City, which is that Kansas City is in Missouri, just to be clear for everybody. That's
right.
Okay. Well, thanks for joining today. How are you doing? It's Community College Month, but how are you holding up?
Boy, what a way to kick off Community College Month, huh? I'm hanging in there. There's a lot of weight on all of our shoulders, a lot of big decisions to make, and especially in our state. And I'm sure we'll talk about that a little later, but I'm hanging in there.
Good. That's great. Well, for those out there that are maybe watching this that don't know you, maybe share a little bit about your background, where you come from, and a little about Metropolitan Community College.
Thank you. And thank you, Dr. Kilgore, for inviting me to participate, or Gilgore, I'm sorry.
Happens all the time, it's all right.
Thank you for inviting me to participate. I'm really pleased to be able to share a little bit of information about the college. I'm the chancellor at Metropolitan Community College, have had a pretty much traditional trajectory on the academic side of the house and worked all over the country at multi-campus large institutions to include Tidewater Community College in Southeastern Virginia, Cypress College in Southern California, Tarrant County College in Fort Worth, Texas, Houston Community College in Houston, Texas, and now at Metropolitan. I had those first two out of order. Metropolitan Community College is the second largest community college in the state of Missouri. We serve an unduplicated count of about 24,000 students annually and have over 120 programs. We have the health sciences fields, the public safety, the career and technical, heavy career and technical fields. And of course, we have our transfer programs. We have a lot of great relationships with Mizzou, UMKC, KU, UCM, and colleges, Park University, and William Jules. So our students do well in all of our career and technical programs. We have about a 95% or higher placement rate, and our students are very successful in transfer. In fact, Greg Gunderson, the president of Park University, told me that our students, when they transfer, perform better than those students that are initially placed at Park. So we are very pleased with our faculty and staff and administrators for what they do to prepare our students for the next phase in their lives.
You see that a lot, actually. It seems to hear that this trend of community college students perform much better at four-year universities than native students to those. So that's, we see that. That's great. That's really great information about that. You mentioned a lot of schools you've worked for in your background, and I know that your background in education is in English, and then your doctorate in higher ed in community college specifically. Was there a moment or something in your past that said community colleges are for me? This is the route I want to go in. I mean, what made you kind of focus on that?
I'm so glad you asked that question. And there was a moment. In fact, there were probably two moments when I actually started my career in the four-year sector, and in the four-year sector. So I fell upon community colleges. So I know I look like I'm only 25, but this is my 33rd year in higher education. And I started in Baltimore working at the four-year universities, and I had started working in the prison system doing adult basic education, and the crime bill was wiping out our jobs. So I went to Southern California because my father had a family barbecue business. So I was going to be a part of the barbecue business. And then that's when I discovered community college. And so while I was out there, I taught adjunct and did the freeway flyer thing. And once I was hired as a full-time faculty member, I remember going to this dean in social sciences. I can see his face, but I can't remember his name. And that dean said to me that, I was asking him, well, what do you think about, whether or not you do 4-year or whether or not you do 2-year? And he said, Kim, here's what I'll tell you. He said, if you want to, contribute to the genre and literature and do those types of things and publish, and perhaps have an impact on lives, then don't, then you go to a university. But if you really want to shape lives, if you really want to shape and touch lives, then you do the community college. So that was the first turning point for me. And then after that, I was a faculty member there, and then I was a dean at Tidewater Community College, and Deborah DeCroce was the president at that time. And my boss, my provost, oh my God, he would kill me that I am having a blank on his name right now. He was so pivotal in my life. But anyway, he said, you've got to get your doctorate degree. And I was still pinching myself that I was a dean and excited about being a dean. But I remember Terry Jones, gosh, Dr. Jones said to me, you've got to get your doctorate. So I remember being in his office and Dr. DeCroce's office and saying, well, I could do the easy path and get a doctorate in English, because at Morgan, where I went to school, they trained you to have your master's thesis be the seed to a dissertation. And so I did mine on a house motif in Toni Morrison's fiction. She had only written 2 more novels. I could have just taken that route. And I don't remember the exact things that Dr. DeCroce told me, but she inspired me in that moment to make the decision to do the path of the higher education route. And it didn't hurt that my mentor of all times, Dr. Christine McPhail, had developed the community college leadership program at my alma mater. So Dr. Jones allowed me to ride from Virginia up to Baltimore every Friday, take leave in the afternoon and get up there so I could do that program. And those were the 2 pivotal moments, and that's what put me on the trajectory.
Well, that's really cool. And it's nice it's always neat to think back on those mentors that have had such an impact, and maybe it's that turning point in our lives or careers or whatever. So that's
right.
That's really great. I appreciate you sharing that. And you mentioned something a little bit back in there about a family barbecue business. Now,
yeah,
I do have a question for you. You've spent time obviously in a lot of places, Texas being a big part of that, and then Missouri, Kansas City specifically. And people in Kansas City would say that their barbecue, for instance, is the greatest barbecue. But I would just venture to say that people in Texas would say theirs would be the greitest barbecue. So
that's
do you care to weigh in
correct.
on that, coming from a family barbecue business?
Yeah, I would. And, ironically, the places that I've lived, I'm going to put Virginia in that mix too. All 3 have great barbecue. They're very different. So I didn't realize you barbecue beef really until I moved to Texas, because Texas is big on beef barbecue, brisket, those types of things. So it's a different there. And in Virginia, if you don't know, it's more of a chopped barbecue, where it's a vinegar-based. Sauce didn't get more red until you move further west. So it's unique in that it's chopped barbecue there. And I would say here it is, you get more in the beef and smoking in Texas, but you also, I think here is more of the ribs focus. But in Texas, it's sausage, beef, and so they're all good. They're just different. And I know that doesn't, say who's the winner, but they're all winners to me because they're all unique in the way. And it's difficult for people to understand that, but they are very unique, all good.
Okay.
And I throw Memphis in there too. When I was in the barbecue business, the top two for barbecue in terms of markets when we were producing sauce were Memphis and Kansas City. So, and I've been to Memphis and had their barbecue, and it is about the same as Kansas City's, but it in terms of the type, when I talk about those different categories, but it's also very good.
We're recording this at lunchtime, of course, and now you're making me extremely hungry with these descriptions. So thank you. And I'm closer to St. Louis now, who as well feels like they make the best barbecue. But I grew up around Kansas City, so I'm more partial to that. But anyway, speaking of the change from Kansas City, you came at a time when sports in Kansas City have not been something that we've always loved our sports teams. Lovable, as we could be with. I've been a Royals fan all my life, so that's been a rough existence. Sorry about that. But after you got here, the Chiefs just win the Super Bowl. And did you have to make any changes to your programming or your campuses during the parade and that type of environment that was going on in Kansas City?
Yes. It was a little bizarre to me. Now, I'm originally from Pittsburgh, so I'm a Steelers fan at heart. I won't say converted, I have become a Chiefs fan. But if they play Pittsburgh, I'm still going to root for Pittsburgh. So I mentioned that because Pittsburgh is one of those big fan bases, and I thought I knew it all until I came to Kansas City. Kansas City has an extreme fan. I mean, there's just a sense of pride that you don't see in other cities, especially when it comes to their sports teams. And so as the season was progressing and things were looking really good, people kept coming to me and saying, now, we shut down the city when the Royals won, and so you're going to have to close the college. And I'm like, really, dude? I can't. Why would you close the college? So there's a lot of cultural things, too, that I've learned about being here. But we did close. We closed for day classes. We did have our night classes. Our Penn Valley campus and our administrative offices often are in the path of like the big St. Patrick's Day parade or anything that happens at Union Station, which is where the parade was. So we wanted to give our students, our faculty, staff, and administration an opportunity to participate in the festivities since we know it's near and dear to everybody's hearts. So we did close, plus we would have had some parking and access challenges. So that was an adjustment, but it was a big adjustment for me because, I wouldn't have thought that was necessary. But well, if we would have left that campus open, I would have never lived it down. I'm telling you.
Well, it has been 50 years since the Super Bowl, so you didn't have to worry about it for a while. But that was I know a special time in the city from watching on TV from my perspective. Okay, so something I've been asking other presidents and chancellors that I've interviewed before we get into the COVID-19 response is really I'm just curious to know higher ed pet peeves that you might have. These are things that we've discussed with how people approach things or say things, or I don't know. It's really up to you. But do you have anything that just gets under your skin as a higher ed professional when it comes to that sort of thing?
Yeah, I may get criticized for this, but I'm never one to bite my tongue. I might practice that a little bit more. So I'll try to be as eloquent as I can with this. I think in higher ed, as we approach things, we have to be as dynamic as the things that happen. And I think we demonstrated that, especially MCC, and I'm very proud of them in this regard, that we pivoted really quickly, but we were thrown into it. So I think this was a great example of how it's important to be able to have that flexibility and be able to exhibit that, not when you're in an emergency, but when it's, let's sit and think outside the box about the schedule and how we can help students to complete quickly if we had only an 8-week schedule, for example. And now in situations like this, or when we have an emergency situation, you may get to the point of doing that. But why wait until we get into this type of situation? I'm so much more productive now because I'm working virtually. I don't have to get up and put on the makeup and travel to work. I can book that time. I can actually work out more. And it's because I've been thrown into it. So I'm hopeful that this experience will have an impact on that, because that is one of my pet peeves. My father used to have a thing about the "I can't" phrase. And we don't say "I can't," but we aren't as solution oriented as I think we could be, unless it's an emergency.
Right. That's a really good example. And I think that what I've heard lately is people saying, instead of saying we can't, let's talk about how we can. Let's try to
That's
problem
right.
solve, figure it out.
That's right. That's right.
Okay, so speaking of problem solving, obviously we're all facing the biggest issue I think any of us have faced. You talk about closing the campus for the Chiefs parade. That's a fun, I guess, reason to close the campus if you have to say one way or the other. But now we're in a whole different world, and so talk to us a little bit about Metropolitan's COVID-19 response and things that are being done in Kansas City on your campuses to help.
We had spring break on our side. So right when this was not peaking in the sense of the cases, obviously, but when the phenomenon was peaking, we had spring break on our side. So spring break was the week of the 17th. And so we were able to take that week to begin planning. And during that week, when we were already closed, extended spring break for the students for an additional week. Then taking that week, I guess, which would have been the week of the 23rd or so, to plan, organize, get all the faculty what they need, and so forth. Well, we thought we had a really good plan the week of spring break. And then the mayor says, okay, we got a stay-at-home order that's going into effect on Tuesday. I mean, I literally sent out a communication to the college on Friday, whatever that Friday was, and said, here's the plan, here's what we're going to do. And then on Saturday, he announced we're having a stay-at-home order and it's going into effect Tuesday. And so we had to, literally, we came in on Sunday. We got all of our essential personnel established with equipment. And then on Monday, got all the faculty established. And then we took the rest of that week. We were planning to do training on site. We converted that quickly to doing all of our training on Jive and all this other technology that we have that are helping the Student Information Center to still communicate with students. Students don't know that they're calling people at home because they're still calling we had to get all that technology training done, but we were very resilient and we did so. And this is our first week we're finishing with instruction. So I think we've done a really good job. I haven't heard of anything terrible happening. So that's on that hand. We're also now in the process of now switching into how can we better support students. We know that this is a difficult time right now. People are losing their jobs. They don't have the normal resources that they would have. So we are also, while all of our employees are home, we're beginning to look at how can we transfer the skills that many of our employees have into other ways of doing well checks on students. And so we're doing phone surveys like, what do you need? What are the top 3 things you need right now? Our foundation board has stepped up and given me authority to utilize some funds. We knew we had students that needed technology, and it's one thing to get them a laptop or Chromebook, but then they don't have the Wi-Fi. So we got hotspots, and So we had some emergency funds that we usually use for financial aid students that may need some support with tuition. We converted those funds into dollars that they could use for computers. And, you know, we are in a very philanthropic city. That's another great thing about Kansas City. It's a very philanthropic city. People are very nice and will come through. And I reached out to my network, and we were able to get some of the computer resources very quickly. And there's a lot of foundations that have put some things in support in place that we will probably also utilize for support. We have, so that's the second thing. The other thing is that we're also helping all of our health sciences. We had the N95 masks, we had gloves, we had the gowns. We immediately donated those to Truman and some of the rural hospitals that exist to try and support that. I believe we're utilizing our 3D printers to try and help and make masks during this situation. So it's a constantly evolving process. I'm communicating right up to this, the point of this interview, was drafting my weekly response. Every Friday, I send something out to the college community. We're building the airplane as it's going down the runway, but I think it's going to take off and fly just fine.
That's a really good way to put it. I think that everybody's going through similar struggles, and based on, then we have our communities as well. So it's not only our campuses and our colleges, but also, like you said about the mayor making decisions, we all have that as well. So, and they're all different, you know.
That's right.
So it's definitely something that we all have to adapt to. Hopefully it doesn't last, you know, as long as it could, I guess. Well, we're about out of time, but I wanted to make sure you had the last 2 minutes to talk about whatever you like. So I'm going to turn that over to you, and then I'll come back in at the end. So take it away.
I think what's important right now is being able to, as leaders, is one, to understand what it takes to lead through a crisis, and while doing that, taking care of yourself. I had a executive coach reach out to me and say, hey, I want to give pro bono some hours to you and your institution to help you while you're going through this. And we did our executive cabinet meeting virtually and tapped into that resource. And we gave her an hour on our agenda, which, given our agenda right now, was a lot, but it was worth it. It was important to make that investment in our team. And it was really good. We were able to connect with one another in a different way. We were able to do some breathing exercises that helped us to exhale and given us a couple of tools to help us through this process. So I think it's important as leaders that we invest in our leaders and we invest in ourselves, stay healthy, and exercise as much as you can, and try to stay calm. I have surprised myself, because I'm pretty high strung, that, you know, as people have called me and and I've been able to and I'm so calm at the end. They say, I'm so sorry, Chancellor, to bother you with this. I shouldn't have called you. I know you're busy. And no, that's why I'm here. And people need to feel that. People need to feel that they have an advocate, that they have somebody to come to. And going back to that coaching, making that available to our team leaders so that they can do it with their teams, because it's hard on people. I mean, personally, I've got a son that's in the military, who's in the National Guard, who's getting ready to get deployed. And that same family, they're trying to buy a home. They can't look at homes because nobody wants anybody with COVID in their home. I had an uncle who had the COVID virus. Thank goodness he went home last night. I mean, and that's just in my immediate family. I have a son that works in the healthcare and goes into every day. These are real worries and real consequences, or not consequences, but outputs of what's happening. And so that, compounded with having to lead an institution and do the jobs that we do, it's really important that you take care of yourself mentally. And I'm doing that. I'm not sure I'll I'll know soon if I'm doing it to the best I can, but I'm doing the best I can. And I would encourage everybody else to do the same.
All right, great. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Those are really wise words, honestly, that we can all learn from. I just want to thank you for taking the time to do this today. I did have the pleasure of being at one of your first, I think it was a convocation or an all employee meeting a couple of years ago. I just happened to be on campus doing a presentation. So I sat in on one of your meetings, and you're just an impressive leader, and I really appreciate everything you're doing for Metropolitan Community College, as well as the state of Missouri and all community colleges. So really appreciate you and appreciate your time with this. So thanks again for joining me. And if there's anything you need in the future, please don't hesitate to reach out, Dr. Beatty.
Will do. Thanks for having me.
All right, thank you.